On a sunny afternoon on September 19th, 1994, at about 12:12 p.m. local time in Ariel School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, something bizarre that completely defies imagination happened.
I thought it was an alien and he had big eyes.
Children had just come out for their break as the teachers had a short meeting in the staff room. These young ones, only between 6 to 12 years of age, were playing in the schoolyard, unaware that this day would change their lives forever. 62 of them were playing at the bushy edge of the schoolyard, where they saw something that sent them screaming back to their teachers, utterly traumatized by what they had just witnessed. These children consistently described seeing a silver craft of unknown origin that descended from the sky and landed right before their very eyes. They described creatures with big eyes like ruby balls.
I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees and a person in black.
They had big black eyes. That's all I saw. I saw a glimpse. They kind of turned around and stared and then went back into a kind of like ship.
Dressed all in black, approaching them, and without making any sound, they somehow communicated telepathically to these children a message of great environmental catastrophe that awaited the earth. This is the incredible story. I am willing to bet that you have watched many movies and documentaries about UFOs and aliens, right? Until just a few days ago, I used to think that maybe aliens just hate Africa or something, because I had never heard of a story of UFO sighting in Africa. Have you? Well, that changed. The story of these children in Ruwa, Zimbabwe made my jaw literally drop to the floor. Now, I can already hear you typing on your keyboard and rolling your eyes and saying, yet another YouTube conspiracy theory. But hear me out. Something happened in September 1994. 62 children saw something that they could not explain. Now, whether this was a UFO sighting or maybe beings from another world, or whether this was just some sort of mass hysteria, I think that the events that took place on this day are truly worth exploring. There is an actual scientific paper that I have linked in the description that explored the stories of these children and completely ruled out mass hysteria. The details in which the children described the events was truly remarkable. Listen, this is what the paper said. Many dismissed the 1994 incident as mass hysteria affecting the children, but when the children were found to not have much prior knowledge to UFOs or popular UFO perceptions, many other people believed that what the children witnessed could have been real. So sit down and get yourself a glass of water, because this is going to be a super interesting one. So what exactly happened on this day? It was on a sunny afternoon and the children were in the yard playing. They had just finished their morning lessons and the teachers had gone into the staff room to have a meeting. On a hilly and bushy patch of the playground where the children were, the children described seeing something silver descend from the sky. Thereafter, the children saw these two small creatures, one that walked on top of the craft and another came down to check them out. The children describe him as being in all black in a very tight suit. They say he had big round eyes, and one child described them as ruby balls.
I thought it was an alien and he had big eyes.
Could you tell me what you saw on Friday?
Well, it looked like it was like glinting in the trees. Like it looked like roundabout like a disc, like a round.
Are you sure it wasn't a Harrier jump jet or
No,
something that the Zimbabwe Air Force
It was
had
like
got?
in a disc.
Upon seeing this creature descend off the craft, some of the children ran away, as I would have, but some stayed and had direct visual contact of this creature. The creature did not speak or make any sound, but it seemed to have had some type of communication with these children. Now, here comes the interesting part. This is what the creature told the children. They said that human activities are leading to a great pollution, and this was somehow going to destroy the earth or the environment. He somehow communicated this to the children telepathically because he did not speak or say any words to the children, yet the children distinctly remember receiving this message from him or it, maybe. The young children, especially those who were at the front, were the most traumatized because they had no frame of reference to describe what they had just witnessed.
I saw this silver thing in amongst this clump of trees with this one thing sitting on the side and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
Thereafter, all the children ran to the teacher's staff room screaming. They tried to describe what they had just experienced to the teachers, but the teachers, the naive adults that they were, did not believe that any of this was true.
Mr. Mackey, you're headmaster of Ariel School. Tell me, what do you think of all this?
I feel sure that the children feel that they did see something. We asked them to draw pictures of what they saw on Friday, and after looking at those, I definitely feel that they did see something.
What do you think that was?
I agree that it could be something that we are not common with. But to actually say that it was a UFO, I would be reluctant to make a decision like that.
The children were asked to draw what they had just seen, and many of them drew the exact same object. All the children drew a little saucer-shaped object with a tiny man besides it wearing a black tight suit. When interviewed, the description of what they had seen was also very consistent among all the children. We have all been children at one point, and I know you know that children have a very wild imagination, but there is no way that 62 children imagined seeing the same thing and experiencing the same traumatic event at the same time. This was in 1994. There was no internet or crazy internet conspiracy theories or funny internet memes. These were 6 to 12-year-old children who did not have any interest in trending. Even TVs and movies were not as widespread at that time, especially considering that Ruwa was just a small agricultural city. Ariel School has been described as an expensive private school, and most of the pupils were from wealthy white families in Harare. Something happened this day. A BBC TV crew was the first on the scene that day. They filmed the area and interviewed some of the children. In fact, one of the journalists, a Mr. Nicky Carter, had a half-brother in the school, and this kid was actually unwell on that day and did not attend school. Now, imagine coming back to school and all your friends telling you that they saw aliens and you missed it all when you were at home. The journalist who interviewed the children on that day said that they had no doubt that the children were saying the truth. The conviction, the body language, and the tone with which the children described the events of the day showed that they had experienced something beyond what their young minds could understand. And the surprising part is that the descriptions of the events were consistent from one child to another. One child described being told by the creature that humans had become too technologized. A 6-year-old described a word that he had probably never heard of and probably doesn't even exist but makes a lot of sense. Mr. Tim Leach from the BBC, having been a journalist for many years, said something profound on that day. He said, and I quote, "I can handle a war zone, but I cannot handle this." A reporter from the ZBC radio by the name Cynthia Hind noted that the children were sure that they had not seen an aeroplane that day. She also noted that the cultural differences between the children made them have a different interpretation of what they had just seen. In fact, the children did not believe that they had seen some sort of extraterrestrial at all. The white kids described seeing some sort of small human men, but the black kids, and this is very funny, said that the short beings they had just seen were tokoloshes. These are creatures in the Shona, Ndebele, and Zulu culture, considered as mischievous evil spirits that become invisible by drinking water or swallowing a stone. Tokoloshes could be used to scare children, but they could be more sinister and cause illness or even death. Now, here's the bizarre part. Just 2 days before this incident, incident, there had been recorded sightings of unidentified flying objects over parts of South Africa and Zimbabwe. In fact, just within the neighborhood of the school, some adults had described seeing fireballs in the sky.
What did you see?
I just saw a glow over my chicken run, a very orange glow.
It was a helicopter or
No,
what?
it was just a big round wall.
Can you just tell us what happened the other night at Kariba?
We suddenly looked up and we saw this thing coming over the top of the hill. As it sort of came abreast of us, it suddenly changed from this glow to let's say 2 big red orange balls. Again, first thought was an Airbus 300 with the 2 engines. But then one thing we noticed about it was the lack of sound. In total, I would say about 14 people saw this in our group anyway.
The 62 children who witnessed these events on this September afternoon are now all adults, many of them not even living in Zimbabwe anymore. But even in their adulthood, they all describe carrying the trauma that they experienced on that day. Something happened to these people, something that changed their whole life. Whenever you mention UFOs, there are always skeptics. For example, according to one skeptic by the name Brian Dunning, the fireballs that people describe seeing over the southern parts of Africa was actually the re-entry of the Zenit 2 rocket from the Cosmos 2290 satellite launch. The booster part of the rocket is described to have broken up into pieces as it re-entered the atmosphere, burning in streaks as it moved silently across the skies of southern Africa. I had so much fun researching this video. The stories of UFO sighting over Africa are truly fascinating, and I wonder why we never hear much about them. Would you like me to do more of this? Please let me know in the comments, and subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. As always, all my sources are linked below if you want to go deeper into the topic. Did you know that all the maps of the world are wrong? I made a whole video about it. Click on the pop-up banner to find out why Africa is misrepresented in all maps. Thank you so much for coming along. You can interact with me on my social media, linked somewhere on screen. This is the African Scientist, science from an African perspective.